Hey everybody, Rob Hogue here, Bass Stalker Fishing. Um, I'm going to do my video on the pre-spawn today. I wasn't going to do it this early, but we've been having a pretty warm winter, and I'm hoping we're gonna start fishing a lot earlier than we did last year up here in New York. So I wanted to make sure I got this one out so I didn't have to rush. But there's a lot of different theories and information out there on seasonal behavior and stuff like that. I'm just going to give you guys how I like to break down the pre-spawn. This is a great time to fish. I mean, you can in later stages of the pre-spawn, you can pretty much catch fish however you like to catch fish. But the first couple stages, it's a little trickier. So I'm gonna get into these, and we're gonna get right into it here. My first stage, I like to call it the stage, and this is the time they're gonna be doing exactly what the name suggests. They're gonna be staged up. They're gonna be in areas where they're a little bit closer to the spawning locations, a little bit shallow. They're going to be a lot shallower than they were in the winter, but they're not going to be all the way in the shallows. They're going to be on areas like your main lake points, your secondary points. They'll be on that first big drop off outside of a spawning flat or a spawning cove or something like that. And they're going to be grouped up. They made the migration from their wintering area, and then they went in their pre-spawn areas where they started moving a little bit closer, but they stayed deep. And now they're moving on whatever available cover there is, either on those main lake points, those secondary points, or that first big drop off. You got to remember the water temperature is still going to be a little cold. I consider this stage in between 49, 50 degrees to about 53 degrees. So it is still cold. They are still moving a little bit slower, so you need to make sure you pay attention to that so that you can adjust your retrieves and you can fish those baits that work better at that temperature range. Some of the baits I like to use are suspended jerk baits, soft jerk baits, football head jigs, slow rolled spinner baits, slow rolled swim baits, lipless crankbaits, your regular crankbaits, and that's pretty much. I don't really throw top water at this stage. I think it's the water's a little too cold for that. But and you know what? Lipless crankbaits, square bill crankbaits, jerk baits, and a jig, I'm pretty much going to have tied on throughout the entire pre-spawn. My retrieves are going to change depending on the temperature, but those baits, they're going to catch fish at any stage of the pre-spawn. So those baits are crucial. If you haven't learned to fish them, I would definitely look them up and start to learn, because those are killer baits all through the spawn. Stage 2, I call it the split. And the reason I call it the split is because the bass are going to start spending a certain amount of time throughout the day just hanging out in the shallows, feeding up. But they're also going to spend some of the day deep. I like to start when I go to the lake. I like to start deep in the morning, and then as that sun gets higher in the sky and starts to warm that water up in the afternoon or in the late morning, early afternoon, that's when I found that I do a lot better shallow. So I'll start a little bit deeper on those staging areas early, then I'll move out. I'll move in to the shallows and start fishing for them shallow, and then towards the end of the day, maybe I'll pull back. This time period is going to go from 54 degrees up to about 57 degrees. The fish are a little more active because the water's a little bit warmer, so they're going to be chasing faster moving baits a little more. So you can speed up your retrieve speed. Really, I like to fish. Obviously, your spinner baits, your lipless crankbaits, your jerk baits. Jerk baits, I'm just going to fish them with a faster cadence. Square bills are huge. a jig is huge, a creature or some kind of jig and crawl, or just a crawl with like a punch weight on it, where you're flipping to the shallow cover, and really that's how I like to handle it. I like to go deep at first, and I'll be fishing with my regular pre-spawn deeper baits. I'm fishing football head jigs. I'm slow rolling spinner baits and swim baits, and then when that sun gets up, I like to target that shallow visible cover, those brush piles, those stumps, those rock walls, those any type of visual cover that those fish can get on in the shallows. That's what I like to target. Now this is also the time of the spawn. I say 55 degrees. As soon as that water hits 55 degrees, I can start using top water. I'm going to be using some kind of walking bait. Poppers work, stuff like that. Also, you want sunny days in the pre-spawn. Well, I do anyway. I want sunny days in the pre-spawn. Normally, when the sun's out, warming that water up, the bass will spend longer. They'll spend more time in the shallows those days. And obviously, if the water temperature goes up a couple degrees, they're gonna be even more active. So definitely, if you're lucky enough to get out there on a sunny day when the water's 55 degrees, just I hope you have a camera, because it can be really good fishing. But really, the areas I'm gonna target: secondary points, those staging areas in the morning, and then the late afternoon. And I'm going to be killing the shallows early. Swim jigs are another great bait for pre-spawn, especially around that shallow cover. So this is when normally the split is when fishing starts getting really good. Now stage three is a little easier to fish. Really, in stage 3, you can catch them however you like to fish. Really, I mean, they're super aggressive. They're loading up for the spawn. But this temperature range is going to be from 58 up. And the thing you got to realize, bass normally start getting really into spawn mode at about 60 degrees. It's getting to be that time where they need to start spawning. So the closer you get to 60, 61 degrees, what you're going to see happen is you're going to see the males, which are your smaller bass, are going to hang out in the shallows almost exclusively. They're going to be feeding up. They're going to be getting the beds ready. And what your females are going to do, which are your bigger fish, is they're going to pull back a little bit. They're going to pull back into a little bit deeper water, and they're almost all the way back to those staging areas. And they're kind of just going to relax, and they're still feeding. You could still catch them, but they're letting the males get the beds ready before the spawn. They're kind of getting themselves ready for the spawn. So that really gives you a decision. Do I want to fish the shallow males and you have the possibility of catching a lot of fish, or do I want to target those harder to find females that are in that little bit of deeper water? Really, you're fishing a mixture of all of the baits that you used in the first stage and the second stage. It just depends on which bass you're actually going to go target. Now, I do have a couple tips, just basic information on the spawn that I want, or the pre-spawn that I want you to keep in mind. One is, remember, these seasonal behaviors videos I do, these are starting points. Every lake is different. A lot of this depends on water, your depth depends on water clarity and things like that. So these are starting points. Remember, you have to make the adjustments to your lake. But having a good starting point allows you to eliminate tons of water. Two, remember that the northern part of the lake is going to warm up first, and it's going to warm up the quickest. So, and then the rest of the lake is going to follow suit. The reason I'm telling you this, if all of a sudden your the northern part of the lake switches to the spawn, and you don't want to fish for spawning fish, which is a very good idea, because you need them to have a good spawn. That's what determines your fish population of the lake. You need those good spawns. But the cool thing is that northern part of the lake might be 62 degrees and spawning, but that center stage might be 59 degrees, 58 degrees, and still in that second stage of the pre-spawn, or third stage of the pre-spawn, I'm sorry, which is phenomenal action. So you can kind of work your way from north to south down the lake and just fish pre-spawn fish the entire way down the lake. And by the time you fish the pre-spawn in the southern part, those northern fish are already done spawning and are back to chasing bluegill in the shallows. So definitely keep that in mind, that the northern part of the lake is going to warm first, and then it's going to slowly creep its way down to the southern parts of the lake. All right, my third tip is going to be about weather. Okay, now in the spring, when you're in these different stages of the pre-spawn, cold fronts play a major role in activity level and the position of the fish. You could have fish almost ready to frickin' spawn, and you get a huge cold front that comes in for 3, 4, 5 days, and they're gonna push them all the way back to those staging areas, and that's normally where they go. If you have a cold front move in, a lot of times it shuts down the bite, and it pushes those fish deeper back to those staging areas, back to those secondary points, those main lake points, out to those drop-offs, and it really kind of shuts them down. And then you're going to be using more of a finesse style fishing, or a reaction baits. Like that's why the lipless crankbaits, the jerk baits, your square bill crankbaits, they're all very good baits throughout the entire pre-spawn, because you can even catch them when those cold fronts do hit and those fish do pull back. You can even catch them then, just by triggering those reaction strikes. My fourth tip and my last tip would be to approach finding pre-spawn fish, like the video I did for you guys on how to fish cover effectively. You kind of want to treat the pre-spawn kind of like that. You kind of want to work outside in. And what I mean by that, if you're on like a reservoir style with a lot of feeder creeks and stuff like that, a lot of branches off of the main lake, you want to work it outside in. If you don't have a fish finder, this is a great way to locate where they are in the spawn. So you're on the main lake, you don't have a fish finder, so you don't know the water temperature. Start outside in. Go to those main lake points. Fish the main lake points. See if you, and I would suggest fishing with a football jig so you can feel any type of cover that's down there. Find the cover on the points. If they're not on the main lake points, move into the secondary points. Or if they're not on the main lake drop off, work your way into the shallow cover. But you're always going to work your way in, so you're going to work from main lake points to secondary points, and until you get right into the feeder creek, fish in shallow water. That's a great way to kind of attack this pre-spawn time period, because you can kind of narrow it down. It's just like fishing cover, outside of the tree, the limbs, and then inside the tree. It's the same concept, but it's very good. It's a very good approach for especially people without a fish finder to kind of target, to kind of narrow it down to figure out at what stage of the spawn these fish are in. But that's it on the pre-spawn. I try not to give you guys too much information, so I don't want to get too in depth on the video. But if you guys ever have any questions on these topics, just leave them in the comment section, or you can go to the discussion tab of YouTube, or you can go to my Facebook page, Bass Stalker Fishing, and you can just ask me there, and I'll do my best to answer them. I'm just trying not to make super long videos where people get tired of watching the video and then they end up missing some key information. So I try to compress them, give you the meat and potatoes, and then if you guys have any other questions, you can hit me up somewhere else. But thanks for watching, guys. If you haven't subscribed, please do so, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks.